You mentioned Biafra, so I'll ask you this.
Yes.
It's one of the problems
Yes.
that any Nigerian leader will confront.
Of course.
And I don't mean Biafra in the sense of Biafra itself.
Sure.
I mean Biafra as an idea that has emanated
Of course.
from
Yes.
allegations of marginalization,
That's right.
sidelining,
Yeah.
lack of merit in the system,
Yes,
and
that's
so on.
right. Sure.
More recently, you had the incidents of Masob, and then, of
Yeah.
course, you had IPOB, which actually took it to, up a notch.
Yes.
One of the accusations was that most of the intellectuals, those to whom the mass
Yeah.
of the Eastern population would look to,
Yeah.
stood aloof and said nothing
Yes.
while this was going on, and therefore allowed those you described as the charlatans and so on take over this process and discredit the idea.
Okay.
What do you make of that?
Let me answer this question. It's a complicated question. First of all, let me make it clear. I believe in the unity of Nigeria. I am a Nigerian, speaking for myself. But I understand why people began to revive the idea of Biafra 50 years after it happened. It is because of the failure of Nigeria. When you have had the kind of leadership in Nigeria that is not inclusive, when you have had the kind of leadership in Nigeria that sits aloof while injustice reigns, then people begin to get nostalgic and sentimental. I want to remind you that the sentiment of separatism is not unique to Biafra or to people from the Eastern, some people from the Eastern region.
Correct.
We've had it in the Southwest.
Even in the North.
We've had it in the South, and we've had it in the North at various times in the history of this country. Some people, politicians in the North, wanted to break away or threatened to break away from Nigeria. The problem in Nigeria is that we distort history to serve selfish agendas. So there is no part of Nigeria that has not at one point or the other felt either marginalized or threatened by the developments going on and just felt they didn't want to be part of it. Let's get this straight. What happened in 1967 was unique. There were certain incidents in 1966, there were responses, there was a massive pogrom. And people began to feel they were not safe. That's history. We should only use its lessons to build a more united Nigeria. We should not continue to now romanticize that history and now want to go back to it. The only reason some people began to have that type of mindset was because of the utter failure of leadership in the Nigerian state, which continues today. But what is my response? The answer is not to break away from Nigeria. The answer is to fight in Nigeria to make Nigeria a better place for all of us, for the man in Kanu, for the man in Nnewi, for the man in Ijebuode, for the man in Bayelsa. We can all have a better life in this big country that has the potential for greatness. For that to happen, two things must happen. Number one, we must elect the right kind of leadership. Again, a leadership with a world view. Number two, our leaders must have the political will to tell themselves and their citizens the truth that Nigeria as it is today structured is not working. But instead, our leadership wants us to continue to live a lie. What am I saying? Nigeria must be constitutionally restructured to function more effectively as a federation for two reasons. One, so that our country can be stable and peaceful. Two, so that our country's economy can prosper and we all prosper. What is wrong with that? But instead of confronting this truth and reality, they want to pretend that restructuring is breaking up Nigeria. Of course it is not. Restructuring Nigeria is to make Nigeria work.
I'm sure you've been following the arguments on various sides.
Of course I have.
The Southwest has a position on restructuring. The Southeast has a position. The Middle Belt has a position. Even the North.
And the South-South.
The South-South. They've all come out with various positions.
Absolutely.
And there are quite a number of people who are saying, look, we've got to deal with this problem even before the election.
Well, I don't know if it is practical to deal with it before the election. Constitutionally restructuring Nigeria is a heavy lift.
So that's at an even bigger level than what probably some are contemplating now.
Yes.
Because some say the process has already begun because at the National Assembly, right now they're trying to pass a law on the issue of state police.
On state police,
that is
so that is a part of it, but it's just one part of it. Constitutionally restructuring Nigeria is a huge issue. It involves a number of things. First of all, it involves what I call the national question. The national question must be addressed in any restructuring exercise.
Which is?
Which is, what is the basis of our identity as Nigerians? 1. 2, do we want to live together, even though we come from different nationalities or backgrounds? Those are the 2 questions. 1, do we want nationhood? I believe that Nigeria is not yet a nation, it's a country. But with great leadership, with a world view, we can turn Nigeria into a real nation, regardless of the diversity of our backgrounds. The second issue is the matter of citizenship. What is the basis of your being a Nigerian? Is it based on your coming from an ethnic nationality like being Igbo or being Hausa or being Yoruba or being Efik? Is that the basis of your Nigerianness? Or is the basis of your Nigerianness the political identity of citizenship? That is the question that has not yet been answered. There are 2 different approaches to it. There are some who say Nigeria is a conglomeration of nationalities and that is what it should become.
Which is what is being feared that could lead to actually
exactly, and I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I believe that the basis of our Nigerianness is the political identity of our citizenship of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is what Kingsley Moghalu believes. But you need a leader who has greatness in him, who has vision, to be able to bring the citizens, to educate the citizens, to do what we call the manufacturing of consent of the citizens for us to forge a new union based on a constitutional exercise in which power is devolved down to regions. I believe that power should be devolved down to 6 geopolitical zones, which should also become economic units.
This is a variation of Chief Anyankwu's own idea, isn't it?
Well, it's pretty much along the same line, actually.
Right.
I agree with Chief Anyankwu's ideas a lot on this subject.
That's right.
And many other people have also
gone along those
lines. You cannot turn Nigeria into a proper federation the way Nigeria is structured today on the basis of the states. Because the states, many of them are not viable. Because the way they were created in the first place was not based on the normal, in a normal federation, you have federating units which decide to create a center. Yes. But in Nigeria, they've turned it upside down, especially during the military rule. The center creates federating units.
That's right.
So it's just odd and bizarre. So this is the point, that if you constitutionally restructure Nigeria such that various regions can take care of much of their affairs, and you have a central sovereignty where we have common services like the armed forces, the central bank, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, immigration, those types of things must remain at the center. I don't even think those things should be devolved to the regions. Remember that before 1960, the regions even had foreign representational powers.
That's right. Chief Falaye pointed that out because they said he did point out that each region had a representative in the United Kingdom.
In London, yes. So I'm not sure if we should sort of go back to that. But you need to give the regions space to develop themselves economically with a central constitution, but there can be regional constitutions, so long as they are not inconsistent with the sovereignty. In this constitutional restructuring, I believe that the center should not be too weak. I believe that we must do it in a very intelligent way so that the regions have the space to grow, have the powers to take care of their economy and much of their affairs, but the sovereignty should remain strong. So that there are certain powers of reversion that must be exercised by the center if people start getting very funny. It's a constitutional exercise in which some smart lawyers can take care of this. As president of Nigeria, as from 2019, which is my plan and expectation, this is what I will do. I will lead that effort. I will not legislate it because it's the National Assembly and the state assemblies that have to do that. But I have the vision to lead, to bring this about so that we will all be happy as a country and function much better. The economy of Nigeria will boom in ways that are unimaginable now when we restructure this country constitutionally. Because the potential of Nigeria is trapped in our unitary system that pretends to be a federation. So, and because that center is controlled by incompetent people, more often than not, we cannot make progress.